How excited are you for the next big thing? Today on... All right. As you can see, we have three amigos here today in one
we have
room.
to do the Spider-Man thing.
Great.
Wow.
Top tier content, fellas.
They found us. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, Sinistar has come from distant
lands.
Distant lands.
Yes.
And
I'm
he's
down the
joining
street.
us here in Washington.
Yeah.
And we got Chard, who just happens to live like 8 blocks away.
Literally next door.
They
I walked over.
They haven't known this.
I came for milk and we decided to do an episode.
No, we have known this, actually.
Yeah.
We've known that we've lived within a half hour of each other since I moved here.
I just thought it was on the other side of the freeway. That's my poor geography. I know latitudes and latitudes.
But yes, we finally gotten together and we're doing an in-person recording for this. It's pretty exciting. I'm happy to be here.
Sometime we'll have to figure out a way to get all 5 of us in a room.
Jake's got to be able to pass the border police because I know he's a felony in at least 3 states.
I mean, isn't that called being Canadian?
Touche.
Well, they're East Coast states. That's fine.
Well,
He goes to Florida.
His love for Circus Charlie makes him a felon. Love you, Jake.
Hi, Jake.
So yes,
Please air this episode.
I am your host today, Wulff, and I'm joined by Sinistar
Hey, I'm in Seattle.
and Chardmonk.
Hey, I live here. I'm crashing on the couch.
And we are talking about our excitement for consoles at the time they released. So we're sort of going into the Wayback Machine and gauging our excitement for these things when they came out.
You can't see it, but there's a time machine right here. We're driving that thing all the way back.
Gonna go
There's
back
a button
in
on it
time.
somewhere.
Like literally 1984 too, as a matter of fact, probably.
But I guess we should start with our first console experience, just so we have a baseline here. Mine was the NES when I was 2.
Okay. I have very brief memories of any Atari, but my solidified memory is definitely NES.
And mine was the Atari 2600 for Christmas when I was 8 years old.
Thanks for the total rundown of memory.
Yeah. I was living in Alabama at the time.
It was a brisk 1975 night. You're not that old.
No, 83.
1883.
I've been gaming almost as long as you have.
Yeah, almost. But yeah, we got together. We were talking about like the thrill of. Actually, this started with a discussion over a PS5 between us and our MPs that we were talking about.
Well,
and GP just recently got one, and Jake was bringing up getting one too. And we were thinking about how we felt about getting the earlier stuff we had before, because they're like impossible to get now.
Yeah.
But we kind of wanted to touch base on the feelings that we had. Mine would be Christmas morning, 1987, I believe, when we opened the package up, and we were like, "Holy crap!" And then from that point on, there have been obviously console after console, as demonstrated in this beautiful shelving unit of all the consoles that we got growing up as a kid. I still have my Sega Genesis sitting underneath my desk in the original box. Yeah, the original box, no less. But what was your first experience? Obviously, you said the NES was your first one.
Yeah, it was probably Super Mario Brothers. I was not even quite 2, so I was vocalizing the sound effects in the games.
Oh, nice.
And so Mario going down the pipe or getting hurt was kind, kind, kind.
Yeah. Okay.
And my family thought it was the funniest thing.
Right.
But yeah, that's probably my earliest gaming memory is that.
How amazing to just give you a difference in like quality. So Atari 2600 came with combat, right? Like
that was fun though.
It was fun, but it also was like, you looked at the other offerings, Yar's Revenge and E.T. Anyway,
such gems as.
Right. But like, I mean, combat was fun, but it required 2 players. It required 2 players, no matter what. But then you go forward to what you had, and like Super Mario, like out of the box, I don't know that there's been that quality of an include even since.
I don't know. Sonic was pretty good.
Sonic was pretty good.
Sonic was pretty good. I guess we can start jumping ahead a little bit. Super Mario World was also pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
And that was you were talking about it earlier today, where you were like, push Mario 3, get out. Which you've run on me on numerous of times trying to play that stupid game.
Super Mario 3's trash.
And our argument about which one was the better one, and he goes, "You want to play a better Mario 3? Go play Super Mario World." And I'm like,
I mean, they announced it before Super Mario 3 was even out.
Mm-hmm.
But Mario 3 it's a good game. It's hard, but it's a good game. Don't feel bad about Mario 1. I can't beat 3. So 2 is the only one I've finished.
I think I've beaten 3 legitimately once.
Yeah?
Okay.
All other times were with Game Genie.
Of course. As necessary.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to fault you for it. I remember going back. I know we want to jump forward, but my distinct remember was the Mario Duck Hunt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And how much I hated that damn dog. And how many times that dog would pop up and laugh at us. And I'd put a couple rounds in that stupid dog. I have a very distinct memory of my sisters and I getting irate at that game, playing the stupid Duck Hunt game. But, fast forward to early 90s. What was the next one that you got after?
I got a Genesis. I think I got it in... No, I must have got it in 91 because I had Sonic as a packet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they started doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that just before, or maybe just after the Super Nintendo released. I don't know which.
Okay.
I'm guessing after because I got it for Christmas.
Okay.
But I was pretty excited about the Genesis. I knew it was a thing. I wasn't, I was 8.
Right.
So I wasn't hardcore following new hardware.
Sure.
My uncle was. And so he was like, dude, this and that and this and that, like with all the consoles.
Blast processing.
I think blast processing had only just become a part of the marketing ploy.
Right.
But he was also talking about, like, my uncle was talking up the Super Nintendo and how many million colors, like 16 or 32 or something.
16, I think.
Yeah.
And then, like, up to, I don't know, 128 on screen. I don't remember
some amount of sprites.
Yeah. I don't remember the actual numbers, but he knew them off the top of his head. Like, that's how into the tech he was. But I got a Genesis, and I was fucking pleased as hell with a Genesis for Christmas. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had the NES. My cousins had Master System. So getting the Genesis, I was like, it's a Master System, but better, you know?
Right.
And I had played some Genesis. My uncle had one. But I was super excited to play it and just, like, finally have a 16-bit system.
Right.
And I was over the moon with the Genesis and, like, the sprite quality and colors and all that. And I mean, I know we call them techno farts on the Genesis.
The farty bass.
Even the sound on the Genesis is still
leaps and bounds better than
way above anything.
Yeah,
sure.
So it was like I was so happy to get that, and I remember being excited for getting a Genesis. At the time.
Nice. I think. I like to go back and look at honestly the evolution of. I know this is going to trigger you. Mario 1 into like Mario 2.
Fuck Mario.
And then Mario 3 being towards the end of the NES life for the most part. And you can actually see the improvements that they made throughout the game and how much detail you can put in an 8-bit system or an 8-bit game.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then I was the same. I got a Genesis too, but the Nintendo was the family system. So my 2 older sisters and myself, we would share that. And I got the Genesis. And I got it. Love you, Mom. I wanted a Super Nintendo. My grandmother, of all people, had a Sega Genesis. She had bought it. And I'll never forget. I was like, why does Grandma have a gaming system?
That blows my mind.
Right. And she never touched it. And I come over, and I think she got it for us to entertain ourselves or whatever. And I was playing, it was Ultra Beast. It was before Sonic was a big, popular thing. And I played the hell out of Ultra Beast. And then Arnold Palmer Golf. Those were the 2 games that she had. And I, hit it into the water and hit it into the sand and throw the controller and get done with it. But I liked it so much that my parents went out and got me the same thing, but they got me the Sonic package one that I played. Mm-hmm. And obviously the variation between Mario Brothers 1, which or I played Darkwing Duck and I played a lot of Nintendo Disney games. Going into the multiple colors and the more the more detailed. You can actually see like Sonic's head was round.
Yeah.
Like it had
Sonic
spherical.
is substantially more visually appealing.
Yes,
Yeah.
without question, and the blast processing. But I'm the same thing. I was not like the new tech, the blast processing, the 16 bits. I was just like, hey, this is cool. Yeah. I never thought about it looking better or any of that stuff. I just was like, this is neat. It's faster, and everything kind of rolls a little bit better than it did on the Nintendo because there was always the lag. You got the slowdown, the Mega Man slowdown, everybody. Yeah. This didn't have any of that. This thing was going 100 miles an hour, and I was like,
oh, I remember the first time Sonic hit a tunnel.
Right? Yeah.
And I was like,
I think that was the only time I ever saw slowdown on the Genesis, actually. Is in Sonic 1 when you go through a hidden tunnel and the blocks are breaking. There's just so many things happening on screen and it slows down. And I think that only happened in Green Hill.
Yeah,
okay.
That was it. Every other stage when you did that, there was no slowdown that I recall. But
not that I can remember.
That's the only slowdown I can think of on the Genesis.
Mm-hmm. It was something else. And then my friend got the Super Nintendo, and I go to her house and play that, and I was like, Final Fantasies are on here.
Plus Mystic Quest.
Yeah. Arguably the best Final Fantasy of the system. Kill me. But, I mean, they were both good in their own right, but I guess I've always been a Nintendo person growing up, and I was just kind of like shoved into the Genesis lifestyle. Because there wasn't a lot of Genesis games where I'm like, those games were sick. Like, I played Cyborg Justice. This is how bad I am. I loved and played Cyborg Justice. That game is janky as hell. It's a terrible game.
I don't even know that game.
It's awful, but it's fun. You're cyborgs, and the premise of the game, it's a beat 'em up.
Okay.
But if you stand too long, you get hit with missiles. Oh. So you have to keep moving, or if you're transitioning, like, you'll stop and you'll fight, like, one or two robots.
So it's Double Dragon with, like, cyborgs, and if you stop, it's missiles.
But you can rip off arms.
That's Cyborg Justice, baby.
Yeah, right? Exactly. It's in the name. But you can rip off arms and replace your arms with their arms. You could rip off torsos, and that was the cool part about it. You could, and all the pieces.
I need a new torso.
Yeah. Well, you get life. That's how you get life back. But you can rip them off and kill them instantly. But every part looked separately animated. So, like, when you walk, you
This actually sounds pretty rad.
You should look into it, but it is janky. And, like, we couldn't get past the first level because there's literally a chasm.
So you might need a Game Genie.
You're right. We couldn't jump past the damn chasm. We didn't know how to get over it. It's a giant hole in the ground, and we just keep falling in. And you could get extender legs, like super jump legs, and that's the only way we could get by it. It took me years to get by it normally because it's so bad. And the more the more bosses you fight, and they all look the same, the harder they got. Like, they'd one shoot you towards the end, or they just rip your torso off and you die instantly, and you're like, how do I beat this game? We never finished it. And then we played Vapor Trail, which I remember as a kid being an incredible low-level shmup. It's not really even a shmup, but it's a flight shmup-looking game. Just recently played it on my Steam Deck and was like,
what's this trash?
This is not the game of my childhood that I remember. This game is trash. Because my buddy and I rented it, and he and I we worshipped this game, and we could never find it again. And it took so long for us to find it again that apparently we forgot how bad it was. Because we brought it back, and we're like, I found it. We played it. We popped it in, and we were both like, this isn't right. This is not the same game we remember. So then we were thinking we were playing something else. Just forgot the name, and Vapor Trail was the one that we remembered. It was bad.
Well, since you're talking SNES, right? So I went Atari 2600. My parents absolutely hated because they bought it for us, and then they're like, go outside and play, and we never would.
Right.
And my parents were very much those go outside and play. You spend, like, if you're awake and you're not doing chores, you're outside playing, right? Mm-hmm. And so years went by. My younger brother's 10 years younger than I was, and so by the time he entered probably junior high or the end of elementary school, like, the Super Nintendo was being hyped. I remember the commercials for Mario where it cuts out to the world, and it's like the Mario face on the United States, of course. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's where he comes from.
Because fuck the rest of the world. It's fine. Sorry, Canada. Sorry,
it's me, Canada.
Yeah. But, so they ended up getting it for my little brother. Now, of course, I was still living at home. And so I had the benefit of like, yeah, it was for him, but I got to play it. And it's interesting. I loved Super Mario World. I loved it. I actually 100% of that back in the day before I knew what 100% was. Like, I did all 99 levels, right? And then, but the one that got me was F-Zero. So they bought it with Super Mario, and then they bought F-Zero. And the experience I had with racing was pole position on the Atari 2600, which was trash, right? I mean, I remember playing pole position in the arcades, and then I went home and played it on the 2600, and I was like, at least the wheels look like they kind of spin.
Right.
Anyway. Pole position at home.
Yeah.
Wish.com pole position.
Right. But then, my friend had I would go play Nintendo Entertainment System at my friend's house. He had Rad Racer, which I loved.
Yeah.
Still hear that music in my head to this day, right? But then
Purple Mountains Majesty.
Purple Mountains Majesty. Yeah.
Not Night Rider.
But then F-Zero, and once again, it's that, like, it was fast. It felt fast. It didn't have, like, the jank of Rad Racer, where it's like, the skid out is like, like, this little, you actually would, like, dunk against the walls. And, so that for me was like, okay, this is truly the next generation.
And the cars were cool.
Yeah.
The cars look cool, the weird futuristic looking cars.
Yeah.
Didn't that stuff take place in, like, 2010?
Probably.
Like, wasn't there? They changed everything to 20XX.
It was 20XT6.
Yeah. Everything was 20XX. In case.
Thank
We're
you,
a little super. Yeah.
Gotta go back in time.
Yeah, right.
That's a Rubik.
What's her? More like tax achievements.
But I don't think I got to play F-Zero early on when I got a SNES.
Okay.
I never actually had F-Zero. I ended up playing it at a friend's house a couple years after I got one. But for me, I got to play Mario Kart, which visually
jump slide,
similar.
Uh-huh.
But it's the mechanics are way different.
Right.
But
they
at least
smashed Mode 7. I mean, that's what they did for F-Zero too.
Yeah, but F-Zero was a little bit more. It was. I guess the art style fit F-Zero better than it fit Mario Kart. Because Mario Kart, you're on the ground.
Right.
F-Zero, you're on a road that's supposed to be well above a city.
Right.
So it
there was some depth to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It fit for F-Zero. It looked weird in Mario Kart. But Mario Kart was still great.
Right.
But I also got to play RPM Racing, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with this.
I don't think I know that one.
It looks and plays almost identically to Rock and Roll Racing.
Okay.
But it's RPM Racing, which stands for Radical Psycho Machine Racing.
Of course it does.
But there's no weapons
Screw
in
revolutions
it.
per minute.
It's more like RC Pro-Am than Rock and Roll.
Okay.
But it had a big track editor, and you could set gravity in this thing. It was a blast.
Oh, that's
maxing
cool.
out on 1,000 rocket psychopath machines right now. We're red light on.
Well, it's funny because on the box it said RPM Racing.
Yeah.
But then in really tiny font next to each R, P, and M, it said Radical Machine Racing. So it's like super small, but that was the name apparently. I think they just did that to make it seem cooler.
Right.
But
because the 12-year-old kid would be like, "Oh yeah,
my dad's car's got radical."
But I remember being excited. So I had never played an RPG until Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
I was introduced to Final Fantasy II. I think I was 10. So Final Fantasy III was yes.
Yeah.
So Final Fantasy III US was on the horizon.
Right?
Yeah. I think it came out in 93, right?
Yeah.
Or was it 94?
No, I think it was 93.
So I got to play that. So yeah, I might have played it just before 3 came out.
Mm-hmm.
I discovered 2 over the summer, and I absolutely fell in love. And I was like, okay, Super Nintendo is my jam.
Yeah. That's where I was. See, that's the thing. I got the Genesis, and then my friend, she got Final Fantasy 2. And this was the same person I played 1 with. And then we never got past the Marsh Cave or anything. And so she got 2 in the Super Nintendo. And the Red Wings are coming in, and the Airships of Baron theme song. And I was like, what's going on? This is amazing.
So Did you not? Because being Genesis wasn't Fantasy Star Genesis?
Phantasy Star was on the Master System.
It was,
until...
and then 2 was on Genesis. 2,
Yeah.
3, and 4 are on Genesis.
Yeah.
1 is on Master System.
But you never got into.
I
RPGs?
played 4.
Okay.
No, I was trying to find something. I was so pigeonholed in the Final Fantasy thing that if I didn't see side screen fights or the layout of the sprites, because Phantasy Star is first person view.
Yeah.
And when you attack, you see your character, but then they go back, and I liked seeing
I thought 4 changed that up and made it to where you saw like your character's outline.
You see
like
their backs.
Transparent or back. Or
you
something.
see their backs when you start. And then when they attack, it's one person at a time.
Yeah, okay.
So they'll one person will attack, it'll go away, and then the other person will stand up. That was the closest thing, and I love Phantasy Star 4. But I also tried to do Shining Force too, and it was the RPG, the tactical RPG thing, which most of you know I'm not a big fan of the tacticals. But that was the closest thing I could get. Nothing could compare, because the music of Final Fantasy 2/4, and my favorite character was Kain, and the whole Cecil storyline, and it was the first RPG that had to me, not out there, but to me, had a story with depth.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted a Super. That's the only reason I wanted a Super Nintendo, was so I could play that. And then Chrono Trigger came out, Final Fantasy 3/6 came out, and I was like, this Genesis can't do shit. It can't even compete with this.
Yeah, when I finally got to try Phantasy Star, not that it was a bad game, but it was a letdown in terms of presentation and storytelling formats against what I had played in Final Fantasy on the Super Nintendo.
Right.
So it was. There's a soft spot in my heart for Fantasy Fantasy Star, because I played the shit out of a lot of those Fantasy Star Online games. I tried Universe. I didn't much care for it. There was also Phantasy Star Zero on the DS. I really like that. So there's a lot of Phantasy Stars I like, and I've gone back and played some of the older entries. But at the time, it just wasn't doing it.
It wasn't happening.
So neither of you did the Master System Phantasy Star?
No.
Not that I recall. No, my uncle, ironically, also had the Master System, and I played weird games on that one. There's one where you're the little red and white spaceship, and you get wings and stuff. I forget what it's called. One of Jaeger loves that game, and I can't.
Yeah, I know it. Astro Warrior.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
I think I have it.
Okay.
It's Astro Warrior.
Yeah.
And then
you buy upgrades, and you can turn around and fly back.
Oh no, you're talking about Fantasy Zone.
Fantasy Zone. Wasn't that on the Master System?
Fantasy Zone was on the Master System.
That's one of the ones.
It was also on NES and Genesis.
Yeah, I thought didn't they make one for the Saturn or something a little bit later? They may not.
It came out on other consoles. I know I have it on the PS2 somewhere.
I know I played that one on the Master System way back when.
But yeah,
and then I played Space Harrier, one of the other one I played, which is Space Harrier was a nightmare to play.
I loved that one.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
But,
sorry to bring it back around, we should probably start talking about, because we're now at 16-bit.
Yeah.
What was kind of your next?
Saturn!
Okay.
Saturn was for him.
Which was...
64 was for me.
Was it True 32, or was it...
It's True 32.
Okay.
So, it's easy to look at it and be like, is it True 32? Because I know there are fudging numbers all the time at that point. Like the Jaguar, 64-bit.
64-bit
32
with
plus
232.
Right.
Yeah.
Saturn had 3 32-bit processors.
Okay.
So, if we were doing Atari's math, Saturn was blowing Jaguar out of the water.
72!
96-bit.
Yeah.
But no, it was... I loved it. I got to play... I got a Saturn shortly after I had started playing Virtua Fighter at the arcades.
Yeah.
And so I really dug on Virtua Fighter.
Yeah.
And then when I got a Saturn, I got it with Virtua Fighter 2. And I got it... I think I got Bug.
Okay.
And gosh, there was one...
There was a racing game that came out of that.
Daytona USA. I did get that. I really like Daytona USA. I played the crap out of that. Yeah, there was a few. I ended up getting a whole bunch of Saturn games. You can see some of them. I got rid of a lot, but I still have a few.
I see those guys.
But yeah, I was legitimately excited for the next console, because now we were starting to see 3D. We were starting to see bigger games because of the disc.
What was cool about that was, like you said, a lot of the stuff that came to Saturn, we were playing in arcades.
Yeah.
And we'd get dumbed down versions of Turtles in Time or something for the other 8-bit, 16-bit systems. But now we were playing Virtua Fighter in our homes, and it looked like the polygons were there on the screen, so you felt like you were bringing the arcade home with you.
Yeah, I remember the days when the arcade superseded anything you could play.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Super C. I remember
Yeah.
Altered Beast in the arcade
Oh, yeah.
was so much better than on any console.
Even on the Genesis, right?
Yeah.
It's still way better.
Yeah.
Way better.
But yeah, the Saturn, it's notoriously difficult to develop for
Mhm.
because it had 3 processors.
Right.
Which is why all the first-party Sega games blow everything else for the Saturn out of the water,
Right.
visually and in sound design and all that, because they actually knew how to make use of everything,
Right.
whereas they weren't really working very actively with third-party developers on how to use their kit properly,
Mhm.
which was not helping them at all.
Right.
But I was super excited about the Saturn because I was like, now I'm old enough to appreciate next console generation. And people were like, PlayStation, PlayStation, PlayStation. And I was like, but the Saturn is so much cheaper. I can get so much more with the Saturn.
Right.
So I got the Saturn. And that's because, I don't know if you guys remember and this is very American for those of you outside of the US, the Good Guys.
Yeah.
I got my Saturn at the Good Guys because Sony was forcing them to liquidate all their Sega stuff.
Right.
Because they were like, well, and the guy actually told us, they were like, if you want to sell all our Sony stuff, TVs, stereos, all this, you have to get rid of your Sega.
Oh my God.
Right.
So they muscled them out. And so I was actually kind of sour on Sony for a while after that. Even though I had a PlayStation, I was still sour on Sony's tactics in that.
Right.
Sure.
And but
Sony tried to throw around a lot of muscle back then.
They did.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Sega, because Sega, it was very much on Genesis does what Nintendo, right?
Right.
And then when Sega Saturn was out, they had Knights come out.
Right.
And at that point, it was the first analog controller
Right.
that I think was for home markets anyway. Sega did that. They're always cutting edge when they were doing
this was
consoles.
pre-Dual
It's
Shock, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so they came out with this 3D controller so you could play Knights and actually do full 360-degree motion, which was badass. And they started this commercial campaign where they'd be like, Sega can fly, and show Knights gameplay. And then they'd just drop a PlayStation out a window. Sony can't.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Still brutal with
kind of deserved,
Still
though.
brutal with the commercials. I like it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I kind of remember the Saturn controller was
Very
kind
bulky.
of unfortunate.
Very bulky.
Have you ever held a Sega Saturn 3D controller?
Not the 3D. I've only held the original.
The original, yeah.
Let me dig these out for you guys.
Okay. Well, he's looking.
While
what
we
did
go
you
down
say
memory
your
lane, I
next-
can look at this.
What did you say your next one?
Mine was actually Nintendo 64.
Me
Again,
too. Me too.
I rode that. Yeah.
Okay.
I rode the Nintendo wave for a while. Now, my personal stock of consoles stopped at the Genesis for a long time. I went PC after that.
Oh.
I started finding that I could play Doom and Doom 2 and System Shock 2 and what else? Descent. I was huge in Descent, and I had an option at the time. The what was it? The Genesis or the Sega 32X had been released. The attachment that goes onto the or onto the Genesis,
Mm-hmm.
and my parents were like, and the Sega CD, which was another attachment I could go in there. My parents were like, "Listen, you can either get this 32X to attach to your game, or you can get Descent and this joystick, this Joy-Con."
Yeah.
I wanted. And it had pitch and track. It was
Because Descent was also notoriously hard to play.
It was on a keyboard and mouse, so I got
Yeah.
the stick to fly it better, and I Descent. It took me a minute. I had to walk around. I think it might have been Good Guys too, actually, right? Thinking about what I wanted to get, because I was like, do I want to invest in this? And this was the first time as a child I had to think about long term versus instant gratification.
Yeah.
Because we all know the 32X
Yeah.
crashed real hard,
Right.
which I'm glad I made the decision I made. And then I kind of went into a PC fit, but my friend with the Super Nintendo stuff, she was getting a 64.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd go to her place and we'd play Mario 64 for hours.
Yep.
And then kick penguins off of the sliding level and do all of that stuff and run around and do the janky controls, but it was
Well,
everywhere.
it was
It was
I
free.
don't know that it was the first 3D game, obviously, but
No.
it was very much. It felt like the first 3D platformer.
Kind of, but
Like-
I think what it was that it's Mario. You know what I mean? It's
Well, and that's what sucked me into the 64.
right.
Yeah.
You're playing your 2D character
Yeah.
that was whoop, 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 you know? And now you're turning and you're punching and you're jumping and doing backflips and stuff, and you're just like, this is the coolest fucking thing I've ever played before. And the controller was unfortunately really cumbersome to use, but once you got it kind of down...
If you have 3 hands, you're fine.
Yeah, right? You gotta have that third hand. You eventually figure it all out, and then we were playing, the Zelda games on there, which I loved, and that
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye. We'd spend hours playing GoldenEye at friend's
Mario
house.
Kart 64.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And I never got one myself. I always went to my friend's house.
Smash Brothers.
Smash Brothers.
And Ocarina of Time. I mean, think about how
Ocarina of Time was like an eye-opening game for a system where we were just... That's another thing. We played Zelda forever. And now we're playing in 3D where we're stopping and turning, looking at this huge world. And it's so funny because I'm going to bring up Elden Ring because that's what I do. But you look at Elden Ring now and you see how beautiful it looks in the game. That's how we felt when we played 64. And you look back and you're like...
these really fuzzy polygons.
Yeah, and you could see the edges of each block. And all the creases and shit.
And the bump map was just this fuzzy, weird... You're like, I think that's rock.
But it was so cool. It was, at the time, we were just awestruck playing this game.
GoldenEye. I mean, think about the faces in GoldenEye.
But they have faces, and they when you shot somebody, they reacted to the spot that you shot at, not poorly, but we'd shoot people in the knee all the time. They'd be like, "Oh," and I'm like, "I shot him in the knee." You could see because they're grabbing it. And that's how I know some of the Saturn had some of that locational stuff in it too, and that sold me on that it made it more, quote, realistic when you were playing these games.
Wasn't the Saturn the one that had AVP? Or was that the Jaguar?
Don't recall.
I just jumped to Atari.
Don't
at me.
Don't at me.
I know what I'm talking about. I jumped to Atari.
I think it was Atari.
Okay.
I don't know that for certain. It doesn't sound familiar on the Saturn, but it does on the Atari.
And my memory palace is away from me at the moment.
Right. Yeah.
Also, I mean, we didn't touch on it. Obviously, none of us probably touched it. But TurboStat Graphics 16.
I had one.
You did have one.
I did have one.
I wanted
Sorry.
to play one. No, don't be sorry. I want to give it some love because I specifically remember reading some of the Game Informer magazines or the older game magazines.
Fantastic controller, too.
Right?
On the TG16.
Looking at Bonk and watching people play the original Bonk's Adventures and how clean all of that looked. And how where we're at now, 2022, we talk about PlayStation, Microsoft, Nintendo,
and PC,
Sega.
Yeah.
TurboGrafx 16 doesn't get a lot of love, and it should for what it was doing back in that
one
day.
of my favorite pinball games ever.
I mean, I
can't remember the name of it. Demon, something like
Devil's
that.
Crush.
Devil's Crush.
I had that one. I had 4 games for this the entire time I owned it. I had Devil's Crush. I had Keith Courage, which was a weird game, but thinking back on it, I loved it. Victory Run, which was a racing game,
right?
And then Ordyne, side-scrolling shooter, R-Type style.
Okay, yeah.
And it was very cartoony,
right? And is Neo Geo its own thing, or were they more coin-op? Were they more
Neo Geo had their home system,
right?
That actually took the blades that were
right.
Yeah, they basically took the blades from the arcade machine, stuck them in a cartridge, and made it so you could plug them in. And I don't think I've ever seen one in person.
I've seen YouTube. I've seen retro YouTubers have them, but I mean, the thing is I think when you looked at the amount of money it was compared to today's dollars, it was something like $900 to enter, and then each cartridge was $300,
right?
Because it was the arcade cartridge.
It was, yeah.
Right?
You weren't playing. You brought Metal Slug home.
You
weren't just playing Samurai Showdown and King of Fighters.
You could take the little memory card and go to the arcade and plug it in,
right?
And continue your game in the arcade, right?
Could you do that?
I think so, yeah.
Because I know that was a thing that Sega started to push with the Dreamcast, which we'll get to in a bit.
Right. No, I think that was on the home system for Neo Geo. Yeah.
I didn't mean to 180 us.
No, it's fine.
Back at the beginning,
no.
I felt like those
we
two
need to talk about it, but I loved. It's weird. I had a love-hate for Neo Geo in the arcade. I never saw one I never saw a home system in the wild, right?
Right.
But in the arcade, we all saw the Neo Geo systems with between
you
5 and 10 games, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I always like King of Fighters was great. Samurai Chowdown. I know
Chowdown.
Sorry, that's what we used
That
to
was
always.
the first game
That's
that
what we used to always call it with
fighting
Samurai
games
Chowdown.
we actually used weapons, and I think they had like blood in that. Like, you could
Well, yeah, there's the part
cut
where you could
people in
slice,
half.
and it depended on because there was a dip switch in the arcade where they could turn on and off like the blood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would always find the arcade where you could slice a dude in half.
Yep.
But I
The
also
things I remember.
I also kind of viewed it because like you brought up like Virtua Fighter and a few of the other arcade like games where like the Neo Geo, I'm like, okay, it feels like they smashed a 16-bit and like 10 games, but I can walk over to Virtua Fighter or that car racing game that like you could do the loop-de-loops and stuff.
Hard driving.
Yeah, hard drive. And like, and I was always like, okay, Neo Geo's fun, but it's like the younger, cheaper stepbrother. Like,
right.
You know?
But it was still the sprites. It was still the very highly animated
Samurai
sprites.
Showdown was always a good time.
Right.
You know?
I was a big Metal Slug guy. I loved playing Metal Slug.
Well, that was like Neo Geo's thing, right? Was these giant sprite capabilities.
Right.
Yeah.
Like sprites bigger than the screen, and it would still run perfectly.
Right.
Where everybody'd moved on to polygons.
Yeah. Right.
They're going with sprites, right?
Right.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I mean, they kept the sprite market alive for a good long time because then everything started, like you said, going polygonal and getting more, like the polygons were getting tighter and tighter until they started actually looking like people.
It's probably safe to say that Guilty Gear was inspired by that generation of Neo Geo fighters,
Oh,
right?
absolutely, yeah.
And that went to the other consoles, but it was still that 2D at the time. I don't know if it still is because I don't follow it.
I believe it is still 2D.
Is it still 2D?
Yeah, I think it still does the side-scrolling thing. It looks just like all the older school ones, but it's obviously super polished. Jake, I know Jake's pretty. He talks about Guilty Gear's current one pretty adamantly. He'd be pretty pumped to actually talk about that. You have to bring it up next time, Jake.
Yeah. Hi, Jake.
But.
Not
GP.
Oh yeah, we can't forget GP.
We forgot to start the episode that way. Now he won't listen to it.
No!
We'll have to tell him there's a surprise in the middle of the episode.
I missed a lot of the console waves from 64 to I missed the GameCube release, and I missed Saturn and PlayStation 1. I played around with it with other people's houses, but I didn't ever own one until I came in at PlayStation 2. That's when I came back to gaming.
So I was old enough and I was, working and stuff. So like the 64 I bought myself. The PlayStation I bought myself. And then I had a friend that had a PS2, and honestly, like we would go over there and we would play Crazy Taxi. And the fighting game, the one with Ivy.
Soul Calibur.
Yeah, Soul Calibur.
Yeah.
We'd play the hell out of those, but I was like, why would I want to buy a PS2? So what's funny is I bought one a couple years later when they released the Slim.
Yeah.
And then modded it. But yeah.
Yeah. I think going back to the N64 a little bit, that was when I started to really understand, like I said before, the differences in tech. And so I remember actually doing like the reading in the articles hardcore about what the N64 was capable of, what the PlayStation was capable of, and so on. And I remember specifically that the console handled the anti-aliasing. Like there were certain things that were built into the console that used to be cartridge exclusive.
Right.
On the previous generations. So.
Well, in the 64, Nintendo worked with, I think it was SGI that they worked with to, like, there is a reason that the 64 is still hard to emulate, because that is like, I mean, every other system was using like the Motorola 68K like CPUs, right? But Nintendo worked with Silicon Graphics, which is why, like, I will argue that the 64 did 3D better than the PS1. I will argue that.
That's fair.
Yeah, and fair. I think that's because Silicon Graphics being like their claim to fame, right? That's the stuff that they did. They were polygons, right?
Now, speaking of like a tech kind of thing, and quote me if I'm wrong, I remember when the 64 came out, there were slots and pockets and things in the actual console itself, and I think the concept was over time, much like the 32X that came out for Genesis, they were supposed to make add-ons and things that were supposed to not. You would like. Now again, this is all stuff I don't totally remember, but I heard people say stuff like, we'll never have to buy another console again because it
Mhm.
has all these accoutrements, essentially, that we just add to it to make it build it up. But I never saw any of that come out for it. I think the GameCube had something similar too, where they had
The GameCube had the entire, like, they had like 3 plates that you could pull off
Yeah.
the bottom.
Yeah.
And I think they only ever released like one, and it was, I don't remember what it was. but
Right.
Yeah.
The Game Boy. No, they released 2. One was the modem,
Right. That's
and
right.
one was the Game Boy, the
The GBA.
Oh, was it the Link?
GBA adapter.
Yeah, the Link.
No,
Oh, was it the
you could actually. There was a GBA
You could
adapter
sandwich it
plugged
on,
into on the
yeah.
bottom, and you could just plug in GBA game into
yeah.
your
Yeah.
GameCube.
Which they did on
I have it.
the
It's on that one right there. There's my GameCube. You can
Yeah,
see on the
okay,
bottom,
so
there's
yeah,
the little GBA.
they
port.
did that with the cartridge on the Super Nintendo for the original Game Boy too, right?
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought of. Now, again, this is probably hearsay that I heard from friends, family, nobody of any, rapport
Mhm.
or any knowledge of it. But I remember there being like all these slots, and we were like, what are these things for? And they're like, oh, they're going to make all these
Mhm.
additions to make it,
It was the 32X all over again.
Mm-hmm. But I don't remember them ever making anything. I think they made didn't they make like a dial-up connector or something
That
like
was
that?
the
You
modem
pay
for the-
modem.
Yeah.
For the GameCube,
Okay.
yeah.
So at the GameCube, I do remember. Well, so that's the generation of GameCube, PS2, and Dreamcast, right?
Right.
I got to see Dreamcast.
I
In
was hyped
person
for the
before I had any of
Dreamcast.
them.
Yeah, I was hyped
And-
for the Dreamcast.
I got to see Sonic Adventure, and that was like, oh my goodness, this looks rad.
Dreamcast was
Especially since there was no Sonic game that was 3D on the Saturn,
right.
which was a huge letdown over its time.
Right.
But then I saw Sonic Adventure, and I was like, this looks cool as hell.
Right.
Mhm.
And then I ended up getting a Dreamcast well before the PS2 came out. And I loved it. Crazy Taxi, like you said,
Yeah.
Soul
Yeah.
Calibur.
Mhm.
Gosh, I had like a dozen games before the PS2 even released this thing. And I loved it. I was like hyping it to my friends. You guys gotta play Dreamcast. You gotta get a Dreamcast. And they were all like, I'm waiting for the PS2. You suck.
And they were the reason that the Dreamcast died.
Yeah.
Essentially.
But I absolutely loved my Dreamcast, and I remember being super excited because of the technology it had. I think it had gigabyte-sized discs,
Mhm.
which were kind of odd because everybody else went to DVDs,
Mhm.
or Nintendo went to the mini DVDs, which were like 1.3 gigs or something.
Right.
Right.
But it was still the same format. Whereas Sega was like GD-ROMs, and they scratched super easily, and it was a mess. So it was really cool, but there were a lot of projects for the Dreamcast that ended up getting scrapped because there wasn't enough interest in the console.
Mhm.
There was supposed to be a Castlevania, full 3D Castlevania game that was like involved time traveling and everything, and it got scrapped.
Damn it. Curse
So,
you, Sony.
yeah.
Damn you.
And then
Instead we got Lord of Shadow.
all my friends were like PS2 because Final Fantasy.
Right.
So it was
Final
like
Fantasy
you with Super
7.
Nintendo.
Right.
You're like, I wanted a Super Nintendo, but I
Right.
got a Genesis.
Right.
And they were all like, well, I don't want a Dreamcast because I want Final Fantasy.
Right.
And
And
Fun-
Tim came out for it, yeah.
Fun little aside on things that Dreamcast had that never really came to fruition. So, back when I bought my Dreamcast, it came with a little modem adapter, right? And they released a broadband adapter that was an Ethernet cable,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So by the time I caught wind of this, like the Dreamcast had already gone away. Like they'd done the whole sell them for $50 at Toys R Us thing, and to just liquidate them. So I went on eBay and I bought the broadband adapter. Right.
Mhm.
Here's the problem though. You probably bought the right one.
Oh no.
There is a Japanese version and there is a US version, and they are literally off by one serial, like by one model
one
number.
pin?
No, one model number.
Oh.
Right? So it was like the S whatever 1001, and I needed the 1002, right?
Oh, no.
So I bought this thing, it arrived, and it shows up, and the first thing that should have like given me the red flags was it came with a web browser disk that had all Japanese kanji on it. And I'm like, well, that's probably fine.
Right.
I'll just, and this was at the point where like everybody figured out you could just burn disks for the Dreamcast, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
So I'm like, I'll just go download the web browser and burn it. And yeah, basically like nothing would recognize this because it was designed literally for that web browser in the Japanese market, and that's it.
Yeah, and honestly, the North American one had that same problem.
Okay.
So there were web browsers galore for the Dreamcast.
Mhm.
There was one specific web browser that the broadband adapter could use.
Okay.
It was designed for that, so it
Okay.
would load up faster.
Otherwise,
and all
it
that.
needed the modem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
So it
fun.
was probably a similar issue.
Right. So here's the thing: is like I spent forever trying to make this work, and I'm browsing. This was like back before like the internet was quite where it was today. So I'm looking at like news group like entries and everything, and finally I determined that like this is a no-go. I've wasted my money, and I remember I got so frustrated with this thing. I reached over, I yanked it off of my Dreamcast. I had a sliding door to the backyard. It's the middle of winter, it's snowy. I open it up and I just wing this into the backyard. And just like, fuck this thing, I'm out, right? So the next summer I'm out there mowing the lawn.
Oh no!
And I hear this and I see it come winging out. And like the little metal pieces are all just like flanged out. And, like, and what's funny is I look at it and I'm like, you got what you deserve.
Never forget.
That's right. So that's my little story.
That's funny.
Yeah.
See, I didn't get it. My ex bought me the PlayStation 2 as like a gift. And I was out of gaming for years. I was working out, I was reading,
Mm-hmm.
I was getting educated. And then it was like giving drug addicts needles.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave me that PlayStation 2, and I went and bought Final Fantasy X, but the reason I wanted one was because of Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
And I played the original Grand Theft Auto, the overhead one.
Yep.
But from before. And it was such an asinine game and so stupid and redundant.
Right. And then
Not
they made it
redundant,
even more asinine.
Exactly. Then they made it 3D. And I could steal cars and drive all over the place. And
you could now tag walls.
And it was the game that I could do nothing for hours.
Yeah.
And not get anywhere, and I was entertained the entire
Yeah.
time. So
3 stars? 4 stars.
How many
That's
stars can I get? Yeah, how long can we go for 5? The tanks and the copters start showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I played that, and then Vice City came out, which was all 80s.
Vice City is
so
my
Vice
favorite.
City.
It's my favorite.
See, I love San Andreas. San Andreas was I was fucking LA,
I think
California
what it was.
guy.
Yeah,
I think what it
lived in
was.
San Bernardino. So
Exactly. You were like
part of it is San Bernardino.
You were in the thick of it, yeah.
I
So,
think
I
for me, Vice City is the soundtrack.
Oh, the soundtrack's
It had that
spectacular.
80s soundtrack.
that and Ray Liotta.
Yeah.
Ray Liotta and Laszlo, the DJ.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the DJ was fantastic.
From 3 and Vice City, I think he was in San Andreas too. His stupid skit stuff. I'd always find Laszlo's radio station and listen to it because it was so dumb.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was perfectly chaotic, and I loved playing it. And even like looking back, I've been playing San Andreas again because I found a way to get on there and play it again. And I still love those games. But I like that was the beginning of the open world of I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want, And then the Xbox came out. We got the Xbox to play Halo, and I kind of I had the PlayStation 2 for a long, long time. And for some reason, I really wanted a 360. It was like all I ever wanted. And I think it was because like Mass Effect was out and Lost Odyssey.
Ah.
Oh my God, Lost Odyssey. 4 fucking discs.
Yeah. Yep.
And
I still never finished it.
The intro to that game is like 8 hours.
Yeah, that's probably why I never finished it. Because God, it just keeps going. But
one of the coolest intro fights.
Beautiful
one of the coolest intro fights with that big machine.
Yeah.
It's like
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And I was playing all that stuff, and that's when it's funny to me because that's when I started noticing like huge graphic upticks, from what I was used to. Now I was a PC gamer for a while too, but you never noticed it back then because I was still playing sprite-esque type games, Grand Theft Auto and
so at this point I'm hardcore PC gamer. I'm playing, in my top 5, I'm playing Quake, GL Quake, etc.
Right.
And so I've got one of the very first 3D cards. I've got a Voodoo. I've got a 3DFX Voodoo card, right? And I remember the GameCube. I used to go to Condex every single year in Vegas. And I'm walking through, and I see the Nintendo booth, and I see the GameCube, and right there on the GameCube is a brand, ATI. Who made the Radeon cards, right, at the time, and I'm like, holy shit, they're putting an actual 3D processor in a console. Like, that was like, because it used to be like Sony built their own chips, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so I think that's where you see the jump, is where like GameCube was like, we're not catching up to where we need to be.
Mhm.
We'll go buy a 3D adapter from and put it in here, right?
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, where
And Metroid on the GameCube. And don't at me. 2 words, gentlemen. Hogwarts Quidditch. Don't at me. One of the best games on GameCube. Do not at me.
Okay, I will try it out.
I loved it. I loved Hogwarts Quidditch. It's so stupid and repetitive, and I loved it. I played that game I was one of the games. It was a feel-good game. I don't want to do anything. I don't play Quidditch, and I just play sports Quidditch for hours. And I go to the Quidditch Cup, and you play as countries. Like, you don't just play as the schools. You play as like countries and stuff. It was stupid. But I loved
That's
it.
funny.
So, Dreamcast for you. What came after Dreamcast for you?
I did get a PS2, and I got the GameCube. I ended up getting all three.
Okay.
But yeah, these were like, I think the Dreamcast was a Christmas present, but then I bought like 2 or 3 more because it got cheap at one point. And I was like, well, I keep burning through them. I play it so much.
Right.
They kept dying on me. So I went and bought a whole bunch of them at $50 when that happened. I did get myself a PS2 eventually, and I got a GameCube eventually. And I remember I was pretty excited to get all of them, but I was late to the PS2 trade.
Yeah, I was way late.
Like,
well, I told you I bought the Slim and modded it, right? Like, that's where I joined the PS2 was with the Slim, like the one that was like that thick, right?
I wasn't that late to it, but it was definitely after Final Fantasy X that I got mine.
That's when I got mine. Was right.
I got
It was
mine
a
to
while.
play Shadow of the Colossus and God of War. That's really what I wanted to play.
Yeah.
Nice.
I wanted 10 so bad. As soon as they were like voice acting, 3D modeling, the whole kit caboodle, and I don't care what anybody says, Oscar. Final Fantasy X has one of the better stories in one of the series. I love it. I loved everything about it, and it holds a very special place in my heart. From playing that was the first one that I played by myself with no strategy guide and just pushed through it without looking anything up. I mean, the internet was the internet. It was hard. Yeah. You could go maybe wing some kind of type documentation that's
I was going to say
somebody's
essay. Find the ASCII text walkthroughs.
Right?
Game facts.
And it's all spelled out Final Fantasy, but it's all spelled out with F's. It's a big logo.
Yeah.
But you could look up that stuff. But I still, you could buy the strategy guide from Bradley or whatever. But I was like, nope, I'm going to do this on my own, and I did that whole thing. I mean, just recently we did the whole, penance and all that stuff not too long ago. But I was so glued to that game from start to finish that I didn't have to play anything else for a while. And then I went back and I got 7, 8, 9 because it was backwards compatible, so I could play the older stuff. And that's where I found out that it is the worst game ever created. and it was so bad that I didn't play 9 until years later. Yeah. Because I was so upset about how bad it was. You had such a bad flavor. Yeah, I was like, there's no way this is going to be any better than that. God, was I wrong. I should have played that earlier.
So Dreamcast, GameCube, PS2.
I was late to the Xbox game. So I did not get a PS3 for a long time. Like, I got it after I moved here in the last 2.5 years. Because there was nothing for it that I was like, oh, I want one. And there was kind of bad flavor in my mouth from the idea that it cost $700 new when it released.
Right, yeah.
And
I remember that was a travesty at the time. Yeah.
People were reselling theirs on eBay for like $2,000.
Right. Yep.
So I was like,
and even now, you can look back at it, and there doesn't appear to me too much of a difference between 2 and 3. Maybe a slight.
Well, okay. I mean, I would say late 3 era because remember you get Demon Souls.
I mean, Demon Souls is good. It was, and again, I never got a 3. I think I had an X that had a 3, and I played.
And God of War 3
I played Infamous on it, and I played. God, the Drake's one, Uncharted.
Yeah.
I played Uncharted and both those, and those were great games. But I wasn't like I need a 3. It was more like I was going to go over here and play here. It was I was an Xboxer, so I had the 360 at home. So I was like, this thing's kicking ass the way it is.
See,
the way it was.
I ended up getting an Xbox because I started doing Halo nights with my friends.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I'll get an Xbox because Halo 2 is about to come out.
Right.
So I got an Xbox, got really good at Halo, and then Halo 2 came out, and I did the midnight release thing and all that. So it was the excitement for getting that was not well before it came out. It was well after it came out, so that way I could play with people and play online. Because Xbox Live was new and shiny.
Right,
And
right.
so that was all cool. And my buddy was in the military across the country, so we could play against each other online.
Right.
So there was a lot of perks to that. I was heavy into PC gaming at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I was not eager to get on the bandwagon for the next generation
Sure.
of consoles with the PS3 and
Well, that's the thing is
the
when
Xbox 360 when that came out.
Yeah.
When I talk about like how ATI was put into the GameCube and Xbox used probably another ATI, I don't remember, but I was in PC gaming at this point, and I was like buying, I had SLI Voodoo 2s, and I had blah, blah, blah. And so I always was looking at it like, that's like 4 generations ago for what I'm doing, right?
Right.
But there's the exclusives.
Right.
I admit I got sucked in by Halo,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I did. And it was because we would do, the version of LAN Party where it's like, we would bring like multiple, like I think you could put 2 together, and you could have 4 players per screen.
You could put 4 together.
Yeah.
4 together. Okay.
We did that.
I think we were doing 2 together, and we had 4 players per screen.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
We did it at one point where it was with Halo 2, because I know Halo 2 could handle more.
Mm-hmm.
We had, I want to say 11 players one night, and we had like 5 TVs.
Yep. We had
4
turnies.
TVs, something like that.
People would bring their flat screens in and hook up their PlayStations to it.
And
or their big, they bring their big freaking Zero TVs and shit.
I got married in 2013, and that was my bachelor party.
Yeah.
Was my buddies and I getting together, setting up a bunch of CRTs and playing Halo 2
Very nice.
on like 360s and Xboxes and all that, just because I had the map pack.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I installed it on all the machines so we could all play everything.
That's cool.
How crazy is 4 players on a CRT like 480i television, right?
Right?
Like GoldenEye. I remember playing GoldenEye 4-player, right?
Yep.
And now I look at it and I'm like, I want my whole 4K screen.
I'm not splitting this up.
So the most desperate we were to play one time was a 9-inch television. 4 of us playing Mario Kart on a 9-inch TV. It was
You've got
so
your
bad.
magnifying glasses out. You're playing.
And I think it was black and white.
Oh shit! So you couldn't even tell what color
No,
you were picking
we
up.
were playing the block fort. Like, where is everybody?
Picking up just random color shells. You don't know which one it is.
Hopefully this homes in on you. And it doesn't come back again.
I don't know if this is green or red, but whatever.
But yeah, I was heavily into PC by the time the 360 PS3 generation rolled around. So I was like, not worried about it. I've been playing PC games. I'm loving them. And then my brother got an Xbox 360 like 2 years after it released. And I had heard about Just Cause 2. So I downloaded the demo and I was sold.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to get a 360.
Right.
I bought the 360 for Bioshock.
Bioshock was a good choice.
I would have been mad.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Bioshock Infinite, rather.
Right.
That came later.
Yeah. No, original Bioshock, like, Would You Kindly?
I actually haven't played through it.
That's a good one.
I've only played Infinite.
That's a good one.
You got the Would You Kindly? Yeah.
I only played 1. I haven't played any of the other 2, but I liked 1 so much. I was going to play 2, and then I was told don't.
2 is...
I heard it was meh.
It's
neither good nor bad.
It's a game. It's a game. It's
how does GP always say it? It exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a game you play as a big daddy, whatever, cool. But it lost the cleverness. I mean, no Ken Levine was involved.
Right.
So, yeah.
I don't remember. I think I got the 360 because I still had the original, Xbox. And so I was just keeping going with the same thing. And a lot of the stuff was backwards compatible at the time. So I wasn't giving up my library that I already had. So like your shelves, but mine were all green. Like with all the green ones.
Right.
And then Dead Space came out on 360. And I was like, let's go. And I was just starting to date Rogue when 2 came out. And she took me to the midnight release in Chico for that.
Nice.
And she's like, I don't know what you're so damn excited about.
You're like, you have no idea.
And I was waffling back and forth because I was like, I'm a console gamer. Nope, I'm a PC gamer. I do World of Warcraft and
I was doing WoW heavy at the time.
Star Wars Galaxies before that.
Yeah.
And then whatever PC games I get my hand on, Doom 3. We had that discussion. And then I'd be like, all right, well, I'm going to go play PC or I'm going to go play consoles. And then I play stuff on my PlayStation 2, my Xbox. And then it became a space issue where I moved into places that were too small to have a computer. So I just played on my console because it was on the big screen TV and it wasn't a big deal. And we did that for years. And then I forget what got me like back into PC game. It might have been streaming. Like I went out and actually got like, and it was Rogue. She was like, let's get you a real PC. And so we did, because I had the Xbox One and I played the hell out of that. And I started streaming on that. And I was like, I miss having a computer. Like, I had like this janky piece of garbage that I kept around forever that I played Rift on for a long time. And StarCraft 2. And I'd play that so much that you'd hear the minerals depleted. And she'd be like, go find minerals somewhere else! For God's sakes, find them anywhere else! Because it would go off so often.
Right.
And my buddy and I would play together.
You need more Vespian gas.
Exactly, yeah. And then, I held on to that PC for years, and it just turned into cannibalizing for other things. And I think I just recently got rid of that one. And then streaming got me back into actual PC gaming, and then getting into the retro stuff had me find all the stuff that I never got to play in the past, like Sega Saturn and the old stuff that I missed.
Okay, so I don't think any of us had an Xbox One, an Xbox.
I do.
Do you?
Yep, I did.
Okay, I know you have a PS4. I think I see it over there.
I do.
Right? I have a PS4. I bought it for the... Yeah, go ahead.
People are going to kill us.
Okay.
We skipped over the Wii.
Oh no!
I
spent so much time in the Wii. I did.
I got that midnight
did
release
too.
with Zelda, and
I've
never played Zelda.
Oh my god,
Okay.
I love that.
My
movie.
Twilight Princess, I have not touched.
Galaxy
God.
was fantastic. Anyway,
I bought Twilight Princess before I had a Wii. So I had the game before we had the Wii.
Nice.
I have to tell you a fun story.
Yeah, I think that was... Oh no, that was the Switch.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that.
I have to tell you a fun story. So, Wii comes out, and you know that they were impossible to find, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And one of my coworkers brought one into the office, and we're playing tennis and bowling, and I'm like, this is amazing, I need to get one, right? So one day, I'm walking through Costco, and they literally roll the pallet out, like still in the shrink wrap, and like start cutting the shrink wrap, and I see Wii's inside this shrink wrap. And so I walk over, I haven't talked to Sinistar at all. Like, and I just like put it in my cart because I'm like, if all else fails, I'll just walk it back and put it back. But like, oh my gosh, everybody gets on their phone and they're like calling their wives, of course, right?
Yeah.
And they're just walking off as they're calling their wives. I'm like, you idiots, put it in your cart and walk the rest of the store.
Right.
So yeah, I call Sinistar. So of course she's like, yeah, bring it home. But yeah, so the Wii was.
It changed
It was fantastic, but I look back at it and I'm like, it was also kind of a wasted console.
It was novelty.
Yeah.
It was a novel thing of not having
because
controllers.
There were some games that required you to use the pointer when it's like, just let me use the D-pad or
Right, yeah.
This could have been menus. It didn't have to be
nunchuck call. Like sometimes the nunchuck was done well. Sometimes you're like, why did you even have me?
I don't know, but playing Twilight Princess and having the bow out and doing that, and then shooting it with you would aim with your fucking hand like that.
Yeah, and Metroid Prime did it well too.
Yeah, Metroid Prime did the same
when
thing.
They did the trilogy and all, it was great. I love how they did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the Wii, I was actually excited for the Wii. I pre-ordered the Wii. I was not in on the 360 at the time. I was not in on the PS3, but the Wii, I was like, yes.
Yep.
And part of the thing with the 360 and the PS3 was like, PS3 was saying that they were going to have things where you couldn't transfer your game to another console or something early on. So I was kind of out with Sony. I was like, you guys are getting greedy.
I think they backed off on a lot of that. Yeah.
Didn't 3 not allow for backwards compatibility at one point?
It did at first.
They had a chip that was in like the first iteration, and then they dropped it.
Yeah, first I think it played PS1s and PS2s, and then they dropped the PS2. Which is the weirdest idea.
Weird.
Because PS2 was still for sale.
It was still active.
People are going to buy games for that.
Right.
And then later they dropped the PS1.
Since they were still for sale, you could just go buy a PS2.
Yeah, maybe.
And you're going to spend the money on both of them. Which is ridiculous. And I think that's what pushed me away from not getting a 3 and why I kept going with Xbox. Because I did get a 1. My wife bought me one for Christmas when we first moved up to Seattle. And I specifically remember the moment I turned that on. And I don't remember what I was playing. I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was Titanfall.
Okay.
She got me Titanfall, and I put it on, and I was like, this looks incredible. Like, it was the first time in a long time that I had noticed a game's graphics actually looked improved upon.
Yeah.
And then they had the Kinects, which was the challenge to the Wii,
Yeah.
where it was now full body motion, and you didn't have controllers. You just did everything with your head.
Yeah.
And I remember that stupid video of the lady coming out and talking to her computer with the kid in it. Did you guys see the advertisement for the first Kinects thing? We're like, this is what we're doing.
I remember some
I've
of like
seen this.
And she was just like talking to the kid, and he like handed her something, and she picked it up, and he responded to it, and then she handed him something, and he reacted. Now, all of this could be scripted, right?
Sure.
This whole thing could have been scripted. I didn't care. I was like, he's responding, looking like, and I was like showing my life. I was like, look at what she's like. Okay, great. Whatever.
Yay!
You know, and it
Like
came.
Wife Wolf.
Yeah.
Like, it's all games.
Fantastic.
What
And I'm
who
like,
cares?
no, but it's the technology. It's the whole thing. It's the Wii without the controllers. So, you know, it came with, when we got the one, it came with the Kinects and everything. Never used it for what it intended to be used for. I think I used it on Madden because I'm
To put your face in it.
No, not that. To
Oh,
call
not that.
you can call the plays.
Oh!
So I could be like, I can call an audible.
Like Blitz. Or
And
Nice.
like Blitz, and then the game would shift on me. So I'm
Nice.
in my
That's kinda
living room.
cool.
I'm in my living room going, Blitz! Blitz! And my wife's like, what are you screaming? You're Blitz!
I just remember all the videos of like the players on the other like in the games convincing people to say the like shut down like right
Yeah. And you could tell it to turn off by just saying, okay, good night. And it would like turn the whole system off. And I'd be in the middle of something, and she'd be like, all right, good night. And it's all, and I'm like, no! Turn it back on!
Yeah.
The one time it hears is not the time for it to hear it.
No, the Wii was revolutionary, but I also, like I said, like thinking back on it, I don't want to say that it was a bad system, but I don't remember any real, other than Mario Galaxy and Twilight Princess and
Metroid Trilogy.
But Metroid Trilogy was even like
Still
a
later,
recreation, right?
At least two of them were.
Yeah, the GameCube was Echo and the original Prime.
But looking back on it, I'm like, you know, I actually used Wii, the Wii exercise, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like I had the Wii board, right?
The
Like,
Wii Fit.
the Wii Fit. But otherwise, like, and I had a boxing game and like, but otherwise I'm like, what stands out in my mind?
It was a lot of novelty that came with the Wii, honestly.
We played a lot of bowling.
Yeah.
And tennis. Tennis was good too.
And I think the Wii was, my mother bought a Wii, and she's never been a gamer.
Yeah.
Never was really a gamer. She used to have a Game Boy Advance. She'd play like brain games and stuff like that, because it helps her think, and then she goes,
Yeah. So
but she
like
would,
Brain Age on the DS.
yeah, exactly.
Fantastic game.
Yeah.
I loved it.
And they bought themselves a Wii because they saw us playing with ours, and we'd just go at Christmas. We'd like play Wii Sports and go bowling, and and do Dance Revolution, and
Just
stupid
Dance or
crap.
something like that.
And that was the first time like my mom became a quote gamer, and
Well, it was accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
exactly.
That's what
And
it's changed.
I think that's what its intention were. It was not for us. It
That
for
was when Nintendo
the
was like,
generation.
we're not going to compete with the others.
Right.
We're going to do our
Right.
own thing.
right.
And they've pretty much done that since.
Mm.
They are...
They did
The Switch-
stutter with the Wii U. They really did stutter with the Wii U.
Yeah, the Wii U still kind of tried to do it. The stutter with that was people didn't know if it was a new console or not.
Right.
And I didn't get a Wii U
I didn't
for a
either.
while after it came out. Mine
I
came
never had one.
preloaded
Okay.
with Mario 3D World. That's how late in the game mine was. But I got it. I was super excited because I got it just before Smash came out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So Smash for Wii U or whatever. I loved it. I played the crap out of it. I just had a great time with it.
Yeah.
That was the last Smash game I really loved, and I know people are gonna jump down my throat for that one too.
Don't
People
add
love
it.
the Switch one.
Don't add him.
I don't. I have it. I didn't play it much,
Right.
but I think my excitement for that kind of waned because the online sucks,
Right.
and I didn't get together with friends much anymore at that point.
Right.
So
Yeah, that was the joy of Smash Brothers on the N64.
Right.
Was I was sitting in the room with my friends,
Right.
beating the crap out of it. Right.
even the Wii and Wii U ones had so many things to just in the GameCube, so many things to just unlock playing by yourself that it didn't matter.
Right.
You could just play and get new stuff constantly.
Okay.
Right.
And that stopped with the Switch in my mind.
Right.
There's little things you can get, but it's not the same.
Right.
It's not constant new tracks and new levels and all that. But
Right.
yeah, that's what I loved about the Wii U one. And honestly, my Wii U became an emulator. I did that because the Wii on it had the back door with the other games.
Right.
So I was like, well, I get to play Master System while I'm on the can.
Sure.
You know?
It's my Steam Deck.
Yeah.
I'm like,
right.
I'm like, it doesn't quite reach. Wife Wulff's at work, and I'm like,
Beep.
kiddo's taking a nap. I'm like, okay, it doesn't quite reach. So open the bathroom door, lean out. Now it works. Or I'd put it on the table right outside the bathroom and just play. Like the controller reaches just fine, but the video needs to be able to play.
Right.
You know, like on the can, but like partly out the bathroom. Door's just wide open.
That's
if anybody else were home, it's like you can see me. But it was a game changer.
Right.
It's not a handheld game. It's a TV game I'm playing here.
Right.
Or my emulators I'm playing here.
Right.
So
That's cool.
All right, so you had the Xbox One. You didn't. I didn't.
no. I will say that E3 that they announced both the Xbox One and the PS4.
Yeah.
I was super excited that year. I watched both of those presentations. And I think it was the funniest thing that PlayStation was just kind of like, we're not going to lock your games to your system.
Yeah.
We're going to have like all these standard features of mic drop.
Yeah.
And people were like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm excited.
We're doing what we should have done.
Right.
Celebrate.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember being excited. I actually called my cousin in Florida, and we talked about it. Like, we're both like, PS4, we are excited for the PS4. We haven't been this excited about a console since we were kids.
Right.
And I didn't get one until the Pro came out. But
yeah, I think I got mine like 2 years ago. And it was Black Friday sale, like $200. And I was like, we'll get it. Because I had the Xbox.
Yeah.
And I played the hell out of that, but I wanted to play Dark Souls. I want to play all those games that were proprietary. And then we start talking about games. I mean, they were already doing it. That were proprietary to each system. So then I was like, I want to play this now. But I don't want to buy a new freaking console to go get this. Now I got to wait. And then things were coming on PC. So I was like, I'll just get it on PC. No big deal.
Right.
Now they're doing you got to get it for Xbox 5 or PlayStation 5 or Xbox XR, XXR, or whatever the hell.
XS.
Yeah.
Xbox Series Triple X.
Yeah. It's this. Now everything's right there. You got to
Purchase
wait.
it on Pornhub.
Right. Sorry, Pornhub. But I don't want to. I don't want to get a $700 system to get a $50 game.
I think this is kind of where we've been heading, though. Right? I think this is where our conversation kind of started and is kind of coming around now in our episode. Is I don't have console hype. The PS5 feels like, first off, it feels like it is the worst stutter step in a release ever, right? Like, I love the Switch. The Switch was great because I was traveling a lot of the time, and perfect for playing travel, right? I played the hell out of Diablo 3 on the Switch.
Right.
The hell out of the Diablo. But now I'm looking at it, first off, like, PC gaming is, once again, the leader again, right? Mm-hmm. Anything that's released on the Xbox is coming to PC because that's Microsoft's platform, right? And now Bethesda, like, Starfield is not going to be released on PlayStation 5, right? Like, and so, like, and how many exclusives are there for PS5 at this point? Like, 5 games?
Yeah,
or something like that, right?
But there's series that I'm into, like...
Well, there was a time where I was like...
Fantasy 16, for instance.
So, when the PS5 was announced, I was like, okay, I'm excited about this because I got into God of War. I got into Horizon. I got into all these games. Spider-Man and all this, right?
Yeah.
And then nobody could get a PS5.
Right.
So they had to keep making things available
all
for
the developers are like, okay, we'll just release it for 4
and
as
they
well.
were all trash on the
and even
floor.
Sony. Like,
use
the new God of War is on PS4.
Yeah.
The new Horizon is on PS4.
Yeah,
Miles Morales, PS4.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't need a 5. I can get it on PS4.
Right.
It's I'm going to have slower loading times. It's not going to be 4K, but I don't have a 4K TV anyway.
Yeah,
I'm still dealing with 1080.
Right.
So I don't care.
Right.
Like, it's going to look as good as it's going to look on my on my TV regardless.
Right.
But to me, I want Demon Souls. I want to play the new remaster or the remake of Demon Souls. Obviously, 1/16 when it comes out. Like, these are things that I may never see on PC because they are so locked in. I mean, we just now, I think, got the announcement for Bloodborne being released on PC at some point this year. Don't at me, but I heard rumor that you might Mind Palace.
Ah, yes. Memory Palace.
You get in the Mind Palace there. Yeah. Check that out. But I heard rumor that they were finally going to release it finally onto PC. And how long did that take? Bloodborne's been out for 5 years or so. So, and I just finished it. Now I don't want to play it again. But Demon Souls is something that I've really want to try, and I looked at it, and I mean the graphic upgrades on PS5 is spectacular. Lord Optic got a PS5.
I'm sorry, 7 years.
7 years.
Wow.
That thing is a beast. I saw his PlayStation 5, and it's this big.
Well, I mean, there were jokes about that when it was announced, right? When they first showed off what it looked like.
Yeah.
And people were like, I have that. It's a fan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dehumidifier.
Yeah, it's enormous. It's got bells and whistles and all kinds of shit on it. But, I mean,
But
I don't know.
I've thought about I actually don't want a PS5 anymore because there's no real exclusives for it.
Right.
And the few that there are, like, I'm not going to want Bloodborne.
Right.
I'm not going to want
Right.
these things. Because, like, I'm even on the fence about Final Fantasy 16, not because I don't like Final Fantasy. I have had Final Fantasy 15 since Royal Edition came out.
Mm-hmm.
I have never played it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a different game.
I bought it full price because I was like, Royal Edition, I'm going to get it.
Right.
It's got all the DLCs. I'll get it.
Right.
And never played it.
Right. And it's the same thing with Fallout 76.
I want to. I just never make the time because there's only so much time in a day. I have so many games on this shelf right behind you guys that I have barely played or not played.
Right.
I have games on here that I bought intending to play, just make a short video on or something, never touched.
Right.
It's like my Steam library. Like, my Steam library is a bunch of games that watch me buy new games and look over at me and go,
Hey,
I'm over here.
Right,
You're
Don't worry, I'll get to you. I'm just getting you a brother. Don't worry. But I mean, we can go back and circle back around. Don't at me about Bloodborne. I'm not sure about that.
I didn't see a confirmation.
I heard rumor about that. But now, in this day and age, what I was excited for was the Steam Deck when they announced that coming out.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's kind of what the Switch did at the time.
Right.
Yes.
Because 5 years ago the Switch was massive because it was doing a new thing. It existed in the middle of everything.
Nintendo
It was a
reinvented
home
it
console.
again.
Again.
It was a handheld console. It had games that were coming to phone. It had games that were on the tail end of the 3DS lifespan.
Games.
It had AAA games, but it was a compact form factor that you could take on the road.
And attached to your TV, like you said.
And just seamlessly at that. Just,
then you were playing it at home.
You didn't have to, like, turn it off and reformat or, power it back up or anything.
Cloud sync your data and go over.
It was literally just TV.
Literally a plug
now
and
I'm playing on this controller and I'm good.
Right.
So it was a huge game changer. And then, with the Steam Deck, that same excitement.
Exactly.
Because now it's that, but with PC gaming.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, obviously they're expanding it because it's Steam OS, right? So it's not Windows, but they are doing an amazing job. Like, we were talking today, Callisto Protocol came out today. Now, Steam themselves hasn't certified it yet, but there's a third-party site, ProtonDB, that's like, plays great.
Yeah.
It plays exactly as well as it does on the computer.
Right.
Which is problematic at the moment.
Right. But they're basically like certified platinum because it plays as the PC does, right? And so, like, yeah, if I can look at my Steam library and be like, hey, all those games that are like, I'm over here.
Now we can touch them.
Oh, now I have the couch time.
Exactly.
Where I can just,
Which is why I love the Switch, because, it's hard to justify being away from the wife and kiddo on an evening when it's just us and I can just chill and hang out with them. And just be in my cave instead,
Right.
as the wife calls it.
Right.
Why are you in
The
your
wife
cave?
says the same thing.
Because I don't have lights on in here. Like, it looks nice and lit right now, but there's literally, like...
Yeah, it's very low lit.
This is what I get when the wife...
Oh!
Jesus
Oh!
She's like, why do you live in
Put
the
a-
dark?
Put an
you
eye
fool?"
warning on that.
Yeah.
But I mean, now it's doing the same thing that the Switch was doing, but now with your PC.
Exactly.
And it's a
I've got-
plug and play. You can dock it to your TV and play it out in the living room. And a feature on this thing that I freaking adore, other than the ability to emulate all my retro games on there,
Mhm.
is the ability to, if you can't download the game, if it's unverified and it doesn't play well on the Steam Deck itself, you can stream it from Steam to your Steam Deck.
Yeah.
And it plays perfect.
It's got the Steam Play.
Yeah, the Steam
to your
remote play on the thing.
Nice.
So I can play Cyberpunk that plays poorly unverified on my Steam Deck on my computer in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Hanging out with the wife.
Yeah.
And it plays seamlessly with no
Wow.
problem.
Yeah.
So as long as the connection's strong, you can do it.
Yeah, I bought the hardware Steam Link years ago,
Mhm.
right? And now, I mean, it's built into the Steam Deck, right?
Right.
So it's great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I had. So, I mean, I have a huge library of, years of bundles
Yeah.
Yeah.
with games that I'm like, that looks rad. I'll pay the $4 for this bundle.
Yes.
And then
Now
the
you
winter
get a
sale
dozen
is right.
games.
And then all those games are, hey guys.
Yeah, don't worry about
And
it.
it's like,
Don't worry, I'll play it eventually.
You look really cool. I'll play you. And then I played it for like 10 minutes. And
It
I'm like,
goes
it's
on-
cool, but I got other games I want to play.
It goes on the Steam virtual shelf.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But if I get a Steam Deck,
Yeah.
which I don't foresee in the near future by
Sure.
any means, but eventually this will be a more common thing because
Mm-hmm.
they're developing the Steam Deck too, right?
Yeah.
At least
Yes.
that's what I've heard.
So the hardware. So if you go look at like the hardware review sites that like do the hardcore PC reviews, they all basically agree. Steam did the hardware right.
Yep.
Like on this thing, they did the hardware right. Is it the same as a desktop? No.
No.
But also it's also running at like 1280 by 720 on the display, right? So
Right.
it doesn't have to be like 1080
Monstrous.
or 1440
Right.
or 4K, right?
You don't care if it's 4K on your little
Yeah.
screen.
In fact, if it was 4K on that screen, you wouldn't be able to see jack
There's
shit.
no detail. Yeah.
So the hardware was done right. There are some issues with SteamOS, but that's what they can change.
Mhm.
They did the hardware right, and they are active. Like, since I got mine, and we got ours essentially at the same time, now I'm using the beta channel, you're using, I think, the stable channel.
Yeah.
I've had like 4 updates, and I've had it for like 2 weeks.
Right.
Wow.
So, like, this is active development.
And I've had
right?
one or two
That's
come
wild.
through myself. So they're constantly pushing stuff out. And it's Linux. It's a Linux operating
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
So people are creating...
Yeah.
You can literally customize almost anything on the
Yeah.
Steam Deck. I have an opening Steam Deck video.
Animation.
It's Frasier.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the theme. So it's got the Seattle skyline drawing in,
Nice.
and it's got the jazz
And then it
music
says
play, and it says
Steam
Steam Deck, where it says Frasier underneath it. So there's people that are making all these different customizable things for this thing to make it your own. And that thing barely leaves my side. Even I look at my wife while I was playing it, and I was like, "Are you upset yet?" She goes, "No, you're hanging out with me finally." So we get to do what we want. She reads and I play. But we're next to
One of the tech sites that I like to follow, Linus Media Group. Not Linux, but Linus. The guy's name is Linus. Or Linus. Linus Media
Tech
Group.
Tips?
Yeah, Linus Tech Tips. So he actually took and used it as his computer for a month.
I
Because
saw that.
you can exit game
It's got a
mode,
desktop.
right?
Mm.
And now he's not a Linux guy, but I've been doing Linux since 94. Like, that's my bread and butter. That's what I do for work. That's where I make my money, right?
Yeah.
And like, when I have the thing docked at home in the little Steam dock, I just have I have my monitor on it with like Linux up, and it's great because I can also like launch games from in Linux and blah blah blah. So like, it totally could be like, I brought a laptop. If I brought the dock and like a keyboard and mouse,
You
could
just
have
play
brought
stuff
it,
right
right? Instead of bringing my laptop as well.
Yeah.
So, it's fantastic. Genuinely one of those, like, so here's my experience with that. So I have a gaming laptop. It does really well.
Mhm.
I have a Switch. And then I have my desktop. And so I was always like, I don't need a Steam Deck. I don't need a Steam Deck. I've got this lined up. No, get yourself a Steam Deck. Like, if you want a portable gaming device, sure. Well, and another friend had been like, but I will tell you this as well. So we got the top line.
Yeah. Not necessarily.
Buy the cheap model.
Right. You
Buy
got
the
it
cheap
in a-
model. Oh yeah. The only real thing that you lose if you buy the cheap model is you don't get the anti-glare etched
The
screen,
glass, yeah.
but you can get the little overlays that are, like the touchscreen overlay, the protective that are etched, right? And this is where Steam's done things right. They've worked with iFixit. You can buy replacement parts. They have guides to open this thing up. So it's unlike any console. Their actual plan is like, no, we want the user to be able to service this if they want to.
Nice.
Right. So there's no like voiding warranty.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
And so you can buy the bottom end. You can go buy yourself an M.2 2240 sized drive and throw in a 512 terabyte if you want.
Even
Or
so,
512 gigabyte if you want.
So, it's got expandable memory that you use an SD card on.
Yeah.
It too. So you can store everything on a terabyte SD memory card.
Yeah.
And all the packaging that, like, when you get it as a case that comes with it. But it's pretty plain. Like, there's not a lot of shit in it. But if you go on Amazon and you look around, a lot of those cases have pouches for your SD cards that go in with it that are secure and safe and sound.
Yeah.
So it's designed to have that kind of storage and stuff.
Oh, cool.
This is turning into a Steam Deck. Love it.
Yeah, really.
Well, I mean,
I had not intended it being.
now at 40 years old,
Right.
this is the excitement for new
Right.
hardware.
Well, wasn't
It's not
excited
the
about
PS5,
any of the
it's not the
Xbox. It wasn't
Xbox,
PlayStation. It's my portable computer.
Yeah.
That's literally my.
The reason I wanted to bring up specifically, don't buy the most expensive one, is you can do it cheaper, and you can get the same quality for cheaper.
Is that the only difference? Is the hard drive size and speed?
There
and
is,
the screen?
there
The
are
edge
faster.
screen.
Well, there are the faster in the lower one. It has kind of a lower end CPU.
But if you no, it's actually just the storage.
Okay.
So if you buy a better, so it uses a Gen 2 PCI M.2.
Yeah.
You can buy a Gen 3 and throw it in there.
Right.
So you can get. So when you're upgrading the hard drive from like the 64 gig to, you go buy yourself a M.2 512 gigabyte. You can buy a Gen 3. Throw it in there, and you're now the only thing that you haven't gotten is the etched screen, which you can throw a little.
Nice.
And they're all the same. Like they have the same grip,
Yeah.
the same size. It's not like one size smaller, one size bigger.
I
They're
thought it
all
was
the same.
different speed RAM and amount of RAM, and
No.
that's just the hard drive.
So when they say faster storage, they literally mean it's the drive, the actual like M.2 drive that's in it.
Yeah.
They used a Gen 2 on the cheaper one, and it's Gen 3 on the more expensive one. But you can buy a Gen 3. It's all the same hardware, so it uses Gen 3 if you plug one in.
Well, I mean, I think I have a Gen 2 in my tower that we're recording this episode on, so...
Gen 2 is not slow, especially when you're talking gaming. It really isn't, right? So, but I'm saying if you want that Gen 3 speed, you buy yourself a Gen 3 drive.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So it's cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. The Steam Deck's sounding a little more doable.
Yeah. Don't add us, Valve, please.
And, well, Valve wants you to... I mean, they worked literally, like, they worked with iFixit, and they make it so that iFixit... Hey, your joysticks die... $20 and you can buy a replacement part,
Nice.
pop the case, put in, like, unscrew, disconnect, put in a new one.
That's
like,
cool.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't care too much about the glare screen anyway. My Switch has glare.
Right.
I play it all the time. I don't care. I'm usually playing it at night on the couch. There's nothing...
Right.
There's nothing glaring
I'm
in
not
here.
playing outside on a walk.
And most people
You
put
might
on,
after you buy it.
most people put on a little I don't, but most people put on a little protective glass over, like, buy one of the, like, anti-glare, protective
I
glass.
have one of those on mine.
Uh-huh.
It reduces the glare a little on my Switch, but it's I don't mind.
Yeah. The other difference is it's the expensive case. The only thing they did was put some coloration and
They
stuff
literally
on it.
just made it like beige or gray inside.
Yeah.
And the other ones are black. I actually would have preferred the black, all black one.
Okay, yeah.
There's nothing
So,
special about
much,
the case, except for
I-
the discoloration.
Okay, so now I want the cheap one.
Okay, yeah. And
Good to know.
buy the cheap one. Buy yourself an M.2 drive. Get yourself like a little
Surgery
toolkit,
kit.
a little toolkit with some like.
He's
Like
probably already got one.
if you got the little spudgers.
The iFixit toolkit.
Yeah, do you have spudgers with it? Which are the
Uh,
little like slide-in pieces that you can pop things with.
I don't think so.
Okay. Just buy yourself, like, they look like guitar picks, right? Just buy yourself some of those little spudgers to, like, pop the case, because you have to undo the screws and then pop the case.
Yeah.
Keep it from damaging the covers and stuff when you put them in.
But iFixit,
Unless you're being use a flathead Fuck up the sides of all your shit.
I
But it
do
opens
that.
them up real well.
I do that.
Yeah, it's like,
I know.
But yeah, there's no warranty voiding by opening it. There's no warranty voiding by opening it,
Yep.
etc. Now, the cool thing as well is iFixit shows you like the difficulty of the process to replace a piece.
Mhm.
So if you're like, okay, the battery looks like a little bit of a difficult replacement, I'll work with Valve or I'll work with somebody to replace that if I need to, right?
there's a lot of open things for it, and they like pass out to Linux users. So like, come and work on our shit.
Yeah.
Come program
Yeah.
some things. We want to take your ideas and add it to this. And so people are constantly kicking out
Yeah.
Proton
Yeah.
DB stuff all the time
Yep.
on how to make things work.
Wild.
Yeah, it's just
I
like,
have-
here's this, and we want the community to add their shit to it.
I have GOG Launcher on there, so it doesn't just have to run Steam Library.
Yeah.
I have GOG, Epic, Ubisoft, I think.
yeah, Ubisoft.
Like everybody, like community has created these tools that make it so you can like, oh, I'll just go run, like I run Slay the Spire off of my GOG account.
Yeah.
Emu Station. You can
Oh
run.
yeah,
I've
Emu
got-
Deck is
I've got
fantastic.
1,400 retro games sitting on my hard drive.
Because you guys have one, and I know you've tinkered a lot with yours.
Yep.
I know you hate Epic, but do you know if it runs Epic?
It does.
It
Because
does.
I have a huge
Yeah.
free library of Epic.
It does.
It can
So
run Epic
you're
Launcher.
gonna use for those that are watching that either have one and haven't done this or are looking at getting one. There is literally you go into the desktop, you go into the like software installer, and you do a search for Heroic Launcher, and then it's like, do you want to sign into your GOG and do you want to sign into your Epic, and then you say what games do you want to install.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. It's
Okay.
really quite
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing piece of tech.
That is super cool.
Now, if you're unsure, because some games still are in process, so to give you a little bit of a dive into like a little bit of the technical. So what Steam did to make this work is they created a tool called Proton.
Mhm.
And Proton basically takes calls to hardware, whether it's 3D or sound or whatever, that would be handled by the Windows operating system, and it translates it into the Linux pieces that are underneath the hood. Now, I specifically say translate. It is not emulation. In fact, funny enough, some of the calls that Windows handles are slow on Windows and are faster in Proton on Linux.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like translating como está
Yeah.
before it's set.
Yes.
Yeah,
uh-huh.
exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm good. Thanks. You're like, oh, fuck, I
I
didn't even
didn't
say
say
it.
anything.
Yeah. What?
How'd you know?
Yeah, right. It's like reading your mind before you say it.
But because this is an active development, and here's the really cool thing: so Microsoft and a few of the OpenGL and a bunch of these other like graphics libraries, so DirectX with Microsoft, they're what's called an open standard. So Microsoft doesn't give you the source code, but they basically say if you make this call, it should do this thing, right? So it's not like the Proton people are doing illegal reverse like engineering. They're saying, okay, this call is supposed to do this thing. We're going to engineer it to work this way.
Mhm.
And then, of course, because like open standards, it may not be exactly what Microsoft's doing. Then they have to tweak it over time and make it work, right? And so it's an ongoing progression. Not everything runs, but they're working toward it. There's a site called protondb.com. It will tell you the ones that Steam hasn't certified. It'll tell you through the community if they've tested it and how well it works.
Right.
Cool.
And what you can fix to make it
Yeah.
run well. So if you're like, this works, but there is an online connection that severs the problem that you can't get connected on
Yeah.
the Steam Deck. So if you turn this section off and you
Yeah.
download this or whatever, then it plays perfectly. You just
Wow.
have to get past like this Ubisoft Uplay
Yeah.
thing.
Most of the trouble is happening with the anti-cheat stuff.
Mhm.
And like Easy Cheat and a few of the others are working to make this work.
Right.
In fact, they've actually fixed their end. They're now working with the developers to like, hey, go switch how you're using our process so that it'll work on.
Elden Ring actually has the anti-cheat on it,
Yeah.
and it works flawlessly.
Yeah. So,
By the time this episode airs, Choo Choo Charles will be out.
Yes.
really?
So you guys will have to let me know.
Really?
Yeah, because it
When's it?
comes
Comes out
the
this
8th, right?
Yeah, next
8th
week.
or 9th, something
Yeah,
like that.
next
So in
week.
about a week.
I had not
This will
realized
be
that.
out
coming out
after
soon.
that too, because
Yeah.
I think
It was Callisto Protocol and Choo Choo Charles. Those
Yeah.
are
we'll have
two
the other
that
episode we were talking about up before this. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
But it's you guys will be able to let us know
Yeah.
in the Choo Choo Charles episode how it runs on that,
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
because we're gonna do a Choo Choo Charles episode.
You can also connect your Steam Deck to your PS4 to stream
You can.
from your PS4 and PS5.
Yep.
So you can play anything. It's just like the remote play from Steam, and you can hook it up to your consoles, both Xbox.
Dang.
Yeah, there's an open source project that essentially has taken what Steam Link did, but kind of like, made it a little more universal. I think it's called Moonlight, or anyway, I don't remember. I'll make sure it gets put into the description.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an open source, and so like there's a video I was watching today where somebody's like, hey, I just made it so I can stream anything to my Stream Deck. And in fact, I can do the other direction. I can stream from my Stream Deck to anything I want. So I cut through this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That's pretty
Absolutely
cool.
crazy. And
Yeah. Yeah, that's that evil E word. So stop.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
But
I'm saying you should.
I am excited about the Steam Deck now.
Yeah.
Like, I was seeing you guys get all jazzed about yours. I was like, I kind of want one.
Yeah.
A lot more than I have.
We did the same thing to Jay.
And then,
It
yeah.
feels like another progression, right? Like,
It does.
that's the thing that
Yeah.
like when I talk about Xbox One to Xbox SX or PS4 to PS5, I don't feel like there's a progression.
Yeah.
Same.
Right.
But the Steam Deck is doing what the Switch did for PC games.
Right. It feels like a progression.
It's taking your PC game library and making it not only consoleifying it a little bit, but making it a handheld console that you can take on the go, just like you can with your Switch, which is...
And play in your living room, and play at your grandma's house. You can
and
plug
play
it
on
into
the
a
airplane.
TV.
Or
You can do the same thing on the Switch that you can on that.
12-year-old me can't even fathom like a to-go PlayStation.
Right.
And then they did PSP like 9 years later.
Yeah.
And this is so far beyond that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so my excitement level for this piece of hardware is up there with when I was a kid.
Yep.
Just because I have a huge Steam library,
Right.
and I tend to get my games on Steam most of the time. My shelf might deter
When you have
my
friends like
people
this,
that,
you
but-
also have a very large.
Yeah, Wife Wolf is like, I don't know if I like this friend group. You guys are all like, you should buy this. You should buy this. You should buy this.
Yes. We're not cheap. We are not a cheap group of friends.
see, we need to grow. Share. Tell your friends.
Yes.
Everybody, tell your friends, because hey, if we can get sponsorships,
We could do videos on way more stuff.
yes,
A lot of stuff.
So,
I think that's a good cap.
manscaping.
Man.
Reach out, please. You do everybody else.
Yeah, I know. Linus Tech Tips does manscaping all the time. Manscaping, we're talking about.
Manscaped. Not sponsored yet.
Well, no, not yet, but we're looking.
Hey,
Yeah,
We'll take one.
I've got the ring.
awesome.
All
I
right.
think that's a good segue.
Yeah.
So, this has been Press B to Cancel.
Yes.
Again, Sinistar. Chard, where can people find you? What you got going on?
Well, I'm down the street from Wulff here, but
Yeah.
you can find me outside of IRL on Twitch and most other social medias. But currently, you're going to find me a lot on my Steam Deck.
And I'm lurking in this guy's channel.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
All
And
the time.
I'm going to spoil something.
Mm.
Hopefully my mom does not. I told you about this earlier.
Mm.
Hopefully my mom doesn't see this episode before Christmas. But I think she knows I know what she got me anyway. She got me that badass Loop Deck Creative.
Shit. Loop Deck,
So-
sponsor us now.
So,
Loop Deck is sick.
Aren't
That
they being
will
purchased
help.
by Razer?
they already were.
Yeah.
But,
So Razer.
Razer sponsor.
Razor!
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'll be the other
that
side.
will help with the video editing process.
Yes.
It'll streamline a lot of things for me. So,
Nice.
Loop Deck
that
is...
should help with getting more YouTube shorts and TikToks
Yeah.
and whatever have you out for us. And hopefully by the time this comes out, a couple will have dropped on our TikTok and YouTube shorts
Mm,
regarding some stuff we were talking about.
Mhm.
okay.
So you guys will have to give me a list for that. But
Yeah.
Yes.
anyway, yes. Check us out on pressbtocancel.com. You can find all the links to everything there. Our flailing Twitter, our TikTok, YouTube, Discord.
Twitter.
Yes.
Come join us on Discord.
Please.
We're not super active on a lot of social medias, but on Discord, you come talk, we will talk.
Yes, absolutely.
I get I don't even get alerts for any other Discord channels,
Right.
Mhm.
but for Press B, it lets me know.
I get Press B, I get mine, and I get his. That's
I don't even get mine. I didn't even turn it on. Like, my phone was like, you're busy on Press B, so you should be alerted to the
Yeah, right,
All
right.
right.
Yep.
I guess that's what we're doing now. I didn't.
Yeah.
I thought it was off.
Nope.
yeah,
That's
nice. Yeah, like, subscribe, tell your friends.
Yes, please.
And don't forget, GP, Guy Prime, and Sick Jake will be joining us again here in the next episode or two.
Yes.
We got a really good one that we're working on coming up next. Well, it'll be
last week.
It'll be different from when this is actually released.
Gonna go back in time.
Yeah, well, this is a very
I'm
much.
assuming that's when.
Yeah,
Yes.
more than likely. But yeah, thank you. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for hosting us and hosting.
Of
this
course,
episode,
thank you guys
Tyler.
for coming out.
Very happy to be here. Happy to finally be
Yeah,
physically with you.
this is
two
fun.
guys.
Absolutely.
This is nice. All right, and this has been probably a very long episode.
Yeah, about an hour and a half, I
I
think.
think so.
Yeah.
I wasn't counting.
Yeah.
Doesn't
I
matter.
know it's
It was
been
a
while.
fun one.
Yes, it was.
Definitely.
And hopefully you guys had fun seeing us all in one place. Or, 60% of us. Hi, Jake and GP.
Hey.
All right, guys.
Okay.
I didn't think of something to say at the end.
We have nothing to say.
The Steam Deck is the greatest gaming system in the world. And if you don't think so, some people just want to watch the world burn.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored.
Michael Caine, sponsor us.